all off season, which is really not. I mean, we're in the off season. We're in the postseason, I guess. NFL postseason, Panthers off season.
I mean, it's been Panthers off season since what, week 10? Week 12 when after they fired Frank Reich.
It's probably a good divider. All off season, we've been assuming that the Panthers would hire a rising offensive mind to be their head coach. That's why Ben Johnson's name has popped up so much. That's why Bobby Slowik is near the top of everyone's list. That's why Brian Callahan was coming back for a second interview before being hired by the Titans. That's why Dave Canales seems to have jumped to the pole position for the hiring. But would you be cool with a defensive guy? I don't know. Should we take a step back and go, are we too tunnel vision here? Like, if the hot name offensive gurus turned down interviews, if Slowik said thanks but no thanks, if Ben Johnson said, you know what, that Washington money spends just as well, if they all said, you know what, never mind, the question becomes, would you rather a top name defensive minded head coach like a Raheem Morris, like a Mike Vrabel, like a Dan Quinn? By the way, Mike Vrabel expected to now interview with the Panthers tomorrow after not being mentioned amongst the interviews throughout this whole process. Raheem Morris already had his second interview. That was today, I believe, actually.
He and Dave Canales, both today.
And Dave Canales today. So there's some defensive guys with some bona fides being entertained. Would you rather have a top-name defensive guy or a step down to a less buzzy, less sizzly offensive guy like a Dave Canales? Right? Because you enter into this offseason, it really was. It still is the Ben Johnson show. He reclaimed and revitalized Jared Goff, and look what he's doing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and oh goodness, Jahmyr Gibbs, and all of these things. Sam Laporta. Like, he is that. And Bobby Slowik and C.J. Stroud, oh my goodness, look what they're able to do. And then there's Dave Canales, who has his own little nice resume, right? Made Russell look good, made Geno Smith look good, made Baker Mayfield look pretty serviceable. But it's less buzzy. Or you could go get Dan Quinn. What did he do? He led one of the best defenses in the league for the Cowboys and developed Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs into stars. Or do you go get Mike Vrabel? What has he done? He's a walking culture of a tough, gosh darn football team. Or you go get Raheem Morris. What has he done? Well, all he's done is earned the trust of every big name in the industry. Going back to his days on that Washington 2013 coaching staff that had Sean McVay and LaFleur and McDaniel and Slowik and Shanahan and everybody else. Do you want the defensive guy? I have a very quick answer for this.
Hit me.
No.
Oh.
You do not want the defensive guy. And that's not to say that I don't respect some defensive coaches. I respect a whole bunch of defensive coaches. I respect Mike Vrabel immensely. He's in my top 3 coaches to hire, and I'll tell you why. And why you're like, wait a second, you just said you don't want a defensive coach. Why is Vrabel that high? I'll tell you why in a second. But here is the stat that shows why you want an offensive-minded head coach if at all possible. Now that Brian Callahan is leaving Cincinnati to go to Tennessee, and if we assume, and I think this is a safe assumption, that Atlanta's new head coach will replace their offensive coordinator, Dave Ragone, that means no offensive coordinator in the NFL was hired as the offensive coordinator position that they stand right now before 2022. I mean, technically, the NFL 2023 season hasn't ended yet. Nobody's been in their current offensive coordinator position since before 2022, which could also be described as last season.
Basically.
Nobody has been an offensive coordinator going back before last season. So, Bryce Young, pretty important to what the Panthers are doing. Pretty important to what the Panthers have going on. He is a young quarterback craving stability. If the offensive scheme that you run is not coming from the head coach, if the offensive scheme that you run is coming from the offensive coordinator, which it is when you have a defensive-minded head coach, it will change every 2 years. If your offensive scheme is coming from your coordinator, there's very little guarantee, very little expectation that that scheme will be the same in 2025, let alone 2026. Meanwhile, Bryce Young's still on the first 4 years, first rookie contract in 2026. If the 2023 season this past year, next year 2024, next year 2025, next year 2026. If you don't want him to have pretty much at minimum 3 different schemes in his first 4 years, you need to hire an offensive-minded head coach.
I mean, he's already had 2 play callers that flipped back and forth multiple times his rookie year.
That didn't help things. Look, and I'll use some examples to show you why it's bad. Jalen Hurts, right? Mm-hmm. Good quarterback. We can all establish that, right? Yeah. He's worth like $50 million a year, so he must be pretty good. Going back to his days in college, he has had 8 coordinators in 9 years. One time in his career, going back to Alabama, remember before Oklahoma, he was at Alabama? One time, going back to his time at Alabama, he's had the same coordinator in back-to-back years. Guess what he did in that second year? Took the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl. He is 100% on if he has the same offensive coordinator in back-to-back years, he goes to the Super Bowl. It's important to have stability. I mean, and by the way, he's not the youngest quarterback out there, but I consider him still a young quarterback, mid-20s. It's wildly valuable for young quarterbacks to have stability. So if you bring in Raheem Morris, who's his offensive coordinator?
Thomas Brown.
Yeah, I would say, let's call him Joe Schmo. Thomas Brown would be the same coordinator back-to-back years, so that'd be a different beast.
They work together in L.A.
Raheem Morris, if he comes in and brings in Joe Schmo, some quarterback coach from some other team, if he brings in Joe Schmo has a great year. Bryce Young goes to the Pro Bowl. Guess what happens?
He gets a head coaching job.
Joe Schmo is gone, and he's high paid by the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? He's just gone. That's how it happens. Bobby Slowik was hired as the offensive coordinator for a defensive-minded first-time head coach in DeMeco Ryans down there in Houston. And guess what? DeMeco Ryans made a great hire. Slowik was the perfect guy for the job. He took his rookie contract and a hodgepodge of draft picks and journeyman wide receivers, turned him into a great offense. They won a playoff game. Guess what's going to happen? Bobby Slowik's interviewing for every head coaching job. Mm-hmm. And if he's not gone this year, he'll be gone next year.
Oh, if you have a repeat season in Houston, absolutely.
And then you're looking for a new guy, and boom. Now, despite the fact that C.J. Stroud had a great rookie year, he's on to his next play caller, he's on to his next scheme, and he doesn't have stability. Now, the flip side is you hire an offensive-minded head coach, quarterback does well. Guess what happens? They grow old together, right? They just get better and better and better. You end up with a Sean Payton, Drew Brees style. We've been together for 10 years. We can look at each other and know I got to get milk on the way home because you drank mine when you were at my house last night.
Reed and Mahomes.
And they didn't all match up at the beginning of their careers, but they could have. Mm-hmm. They could have, right? Like if the Niners, if both their coordinators leave, guess what? Brock Purdy still has consistency in his offensive scheme because Kyle Shanahan is the offensive scheme. Jordan Love and LaFleur, right? If LaFleur was the offensive coordinator of Green Bay rather than the head coach, Jordan Love's getting he's getting a new coordinator next year because everybody wants a new scheme next year because everybody wants LaFleur to go develop their young quarterback. That's how it works. So the reason why Vrabel, let me get back to that. The reason why I like Vrabel is because I think he'll bring Arthur Smith, and I think Arthur Smith, if it goes well, still won't get head coaching jobs because it went that poorly in Atlanta. Right? If Arthur Smith is your coordinator and you have a great season, everyone's going to go, wow, great season. Yeah, I still don't want him as my head coach because we just saw what you did to Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So that's the only reason why I think if you get Vrabel and you don't get Arthur Smith, I'm more cautious, and then I want to see who the coordinator is. So that's why you want an offensive guy, to keep your offense the same for more than 2 years. Because coordinators change every 2 years offensively. That's absurd. That means, freshman, sophomore, new offense. That's crazy.